Have you had a chance to go over the minutes?
Very briefly, but I did go over them. Looked good to me.
Okay.
Especially like the most part where it's 4-2 against 0.
Well, we're going to get maybe we should get an alternate. Wouldn't that be a good idea?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Good thinking.
Okay. So whenever you're ready for solar.
All right. I'd like to call this meeting to order and welcome everyone. Thank you for coming. And the first thing on our list is to approve the minutes from the 24th. I do not have anything to discuss in it. And how about you, Sandy?
No, I move that we accept the minutes from October the 24th.
I'll second that. All in favor of approving the minutes from last meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved from last meeting. We're going to move forward. Could you hand down that list of names? Thank you very much. Okay, let's get into the public comment time. I'd like everybody, since we do have quite a few of you that would like to say something, if you would try to keep it succinct and try to keep it flowing. 10 minutes would be too long, 30 seconds would be too short. So I'll leave it up to you folks, but if I feel like it's going on too long, I'll ask you to wrap it up. So first one is Dutch. Dutch, welcome.
Hi, thank you very much for allowing me to speak today. My name is Dutch Turbush. Oh, okay.
Just put it down there.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's Dutch Turbush, and I'm here to give some comments on my experience with UPublic. I first got into trying to get some, well, first of all, I've been in the music business for 50 years. Then I heard about public access television. And I actually became acquainted with the old quote, unquote, which was the original, you know. And people were very nice. Was able to get equipment, you know, whenever I really wanted it or whatever. And then I moved to Rio Rancho, and then understood that they had a public access program through Edit House, and was able to get, you know, equipment pretty much whenever I needed it to. Lighting, cameras, you know, microphones. Also, they would actually help me do some editing. Then I heard about UPublic, so I came downtown and went through all the classes, and then come to find out that whenever I wanted to ask for equipment, either I would get here and it would be unavailable, or more often than not, the place would be closed. And this is after having driven all the way from Rio Rancho, you know, numerous times. And I noticed that there was like a little clique of people who could pretty much get anything done they wanted to. But, you know, for someone like myself, I was kind of on the outside looking in. And so I never got equipment. I never was able to get any help with editing. And so all I can say is that all the money that's being spent on UPublic isn't going into developing local programming. I don't know where it's going, but it's not going into the public need.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
I apologize for being late. My name's Alan Cooper, and I won't say another word. Here's some empanadas for you. I want to pass them around. They're from Golden Crown Bakery. Twelfth.
Alan, did you want to speak today?
Oh, sure. How can I not?
He always
That's what we're supposed to do, right? We're all supposed to come together and talk.
Public comment. Please
We'll
sign in.
Oh, okay. I told you I wouldn't say anymore. I'm not going to say anymore anyway. Boy, this is a packed meeting.
And that's a good thing.
Yes, it's very good.
It's
In
fascinating.
case anybody doesn't know what they are, they're not poisonous. They're empanadas. They have
Well, I'll make sure.
pineapple.
I'll find out if they're poisonous.
Some of them have pineapple, and some of them have sweet potato.
Well,
I didn't realize it was potluck.
Should put that in the minutes.
yeah, we'll have a sign up sheet for that next week. Next.
Who's gonna bring what?
Yeah.
Who's gonna bring what?
Okay. Well, we've got. Mike, did you want to speak?
No offense.
Okay. Bob?
Yeah. I was gonna say. I'm Bob Ailey with Available Media. I'm the president of Available Media. I started out with quote unquote about 1993. That was about the first video I produced was with quote unquote. And at that time, public access was really pretty incredible. I mean, I don't remember. I think you only had to pay like $20 or something, and you could take a course, and they would teach you everything that you needed to know to make a video. You know, everything from storyboarding it to the actual production details about lighting and filming, how to run the camera, the whole thing. And it really was very, very good, very well done. And so I was a member for many years. I left the state and came back and did more work with quote unquote in Channel 27. And I think the last time I came back was about 2005, and it was pretty good. Except I understand that at that time the budget, the quote unquote was operating on was like $80,000 a year or something like that, which. You could see that it was really putting a cramp in the training and everything else. And at that point, they felt like they needed to increase the producer's fee to like $50 or $60 a year. I don't remember exactly what it was. Which was really, I mean, from my point of view, that defeated the purpose of public access. Public access is supposed to give people access to the airwaves and not cost them an arm and a leg, basically. And that's really what the basic principle behind it was. That I think that was the intent of Congress, you know, when they passed the law to do that. And then of course, quote unquote, got completely blown out of the water. And I think at that time the budget for public went up to $300,000 a year or something, some ridiculous number.
It was more than that.
Whatever. I mean, I don't know the details of how much it was. I just know it was a lot of money. And public access went away, basically. Effectively, it was destroyed by the previous administration. So, all I can say is we need to get public access back. And quote unquote did an incredible job, really, on the money that they had and what they had to work with. Steve did an incredible job making it happen. And we need to get back there, basically. And so there was about, I don't know, I think 6 to 10 of us that produced a weekly live TV show on Channel 27 for about 4 years. Alan was the MC of the program. And
The entertainer.
The entertainer.
Yeah.
He did a great job too. And so that was kind of the core of the experience. And out of that, we formed a nonprofit, Available Media, which is a 501c3. And so we're very interested in working with quote unquote in any way we can, and also bidding on the, responding to the RFP whenever it's issued, and look forward to doing whatever we can to make public access happen again. And the second issue I want to address is basically net neutrality. They're going to be voting day after tomorrow.
Yikes.
And it's very interesting. I wanted to read something. I guess this is being recorded. It'll be into the record. This was a Washington Post article that's just been, it was just published, I think, today, about net neutrality. And what they did was a survey of people to find out how many people were really the effect of net neutrality. And it basically what they found out is even Republicans, 3 out of 4 Republicans are opposed to deregulating the internet. Basically, they think we should keep the regulation. See, I think it was 83% of Americans do not approve the FCC proposal. Just 16% say they approve. And basically what this is a takeover of our media even further than it is now by the big corporations. It's shutting out voices of people all over. And I think cable TV is fine, but you're talking about 3 cable channels here. I think really what we should be doing is spending whatever funds we have to install a public Wi-Fi for the city, because that's the only way the voice of the people is going to survive. If an ISP can decide to give Netflix 5 times the bandwidth that they give ordinary people, and this vote, by the way, will allow them to even block some websites. So what that means is you're going to have editors editing what's in the public domain in terms of media, and it's going to shut out people in this room that do media, independent media, just because somebody might not like it. And so I don't know how to go about it. There's a lot of money somewhere in some bank account from working with Comcast, and the money that the subscribers pay into it. That money should be used not only to get us back on the cable channels, but also to provide us with internet access that's open to everyone and uncontrolled. And whatever y'all can do to do that, I support you 100%. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you very much, Bob. Simon, would you like to say something?
Yes, after reading this comment by Willard Hunter, listening to the gentleman who spoke first, reading an article that was written in a local paper, The Alibi, from a few weeks ago, which stated that the present management team of the public access channel is not in compliance after, I don't know, 5 years, and I totaled up, but that's well over $1.5 million being paid, for non-fulfillment of contract. And also, the gentleman said that these people were not responsive. He'd drive all the way from Rio Rancho and nobody was there. And this is called public access, which means it should be accessible to the public. And the average person, I believe, needs who wants and needs a podium should have it. And it should be unrestricted under your First Amendment rights to freedom of speech and expression, regardless of your opinions. And people. I remember when the present management at UPublic was chosen, the people that in the administration said, well, these people are very professional and competent and so on, and that hasn't been the case. And because of their failure to provide what the city claimed they would provide, I think this is more proof that they're incapable of operating public access channels, and I think that, you know, they shouldn't be taken seriously anymore. I mean, after all these years and still not being able to fulfill their contractual obligations. Also, my own experience was when I went there as to produce a show, I was told that they would decide upon content of program, and I never had that. When I had a show at Channel 27 when it was managed by quote unquote, no one, I signed whatever the FCC regulations were, and I refrained from using certain types of speech and, you know, images. But in fact, somebody once called up the station and whoever was in charge that night demanded that my show be taken off, and they said, no, this is freedom of speech. This person that can express themselves, their opinions, you know, without, you know, you know, I think you might, I know I told people before that didn't like what they saw on public access, I go, well, go down and get your own show and express your opinion, why you don't agree with an opinion like that.
They did that.
And that's why you know, that's why it's called public access. So I believe, well, not believe, but we have proof positive now that the present operator is incapable, and after 5 years. And I think this should disqualify them from any further operation of these channels. And what bothers me is how this was allowed to continue. I mean, I've worked in construction, and I've worked for general contractors and subcontractors. When a contractor wasn't fulfilling their obligation, they were fired. You know, the things had to get done, and if you're not performing your part, they fire you. They have somebody else step in and take over because it has to be done. That's why you sign a contract. In the contract, you will state you will do all these requirements, and if you don't do that, you're fired. I mean, you can't operate a business, and you know, everything I heard about the present operator, they were professional and so on. And this gentleman's comment, I mean, it's only one comment. You know, this is very sad. And again, that it's taken all this time, I think is a travesty. And I think there should be really an investigation. I don't know if the cable board is the proper authority, but there should be an accounting done. Does the present operator owe the city money for non-fulfillment of contract? I think the city does sue people that don't fulfill contractual obligations, I'm sure, on projects and so on. And I think this should be investigated. I think, and why this was. And I'd like to make one last comment. When I was with the quote-unquote, they actually taught people with developmental disabilities to put on a program. They did all the lighting, they put in the gels, they set the cameras, they set everything, they did the directing, they did all the switching, everything, people with developmental issues. That in itself to me was amazing. They did all that work after being trained. And, you know, to me, if out of all the things I took out, just seeing that one program done by those people, I thought that was amazing, really amazing. I mean, to do something like that. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you very much. Ed says you don't want to make a public comment.
Not at this time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Laura.
I would like to add on to something I mentioned a while ago.
Well, can you wait till after we get through everybody else?
Sure.
And I'll allow you to come back
Yeah,
up.
go ahead.
Thank you. Laura?
There's so many angles, as you know, that I can take on this. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Can you go
Yeah.
up there and then put
Yeah.
the recorder there? Thank you, Laura.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep this productive and concise, so I'm going to take the standpoint of a cable subscriber who has been paying into this fund. When I stepped in 2011, as I remember, and Steve might know better than I do, I think it was Willard and some other folks had done an audit and figured out, based on the number of cable subscribers, which fluctuates every year, that there was approximately $6 million in the fund from the time that Comcast signed the agreement to about 2011. So just factor in, that's approximately how much money, give or take the subscriber amount, is pouring into just the 44-cent tax fund, not everything else, okay? So if you go up from there, so now it's 2017 from 2011, let's just say it doubled. It might have quadrupled, I don't know, it depends on the amount of cable subscribers. Anyway, let's just say there's $12 million that I don't know where it went. I know I have some documents showing that Rick Metz requested from the city, I don't know what he got, at least $500,000 worth of equipment. He also got a 100, out of that same fund, as far as I understand, a public fund that is only supposed to go to the operation and maintenance, nothing else, of public access stations. I've got all the documents, I've got the approvals from the city, I've got everything showing he was given $100,000 of that money to build out his private studio on 3rd Street. So that just gives you an idea of why the public is deeply suspicious about where that 44-cent tax is going. And secondarily, I worry for the city. If the cable subscribers decided to unify in this city and sue the city for the millions of dollars that have been absconded with and no programming to show for it, you guys have a pretty nasty lawsuit on you. So we need some transparency with that fund. I need to know how much is coming in. The public needs it publicly posted online. They're the ones publicly paying for it. So every cable subscriber, 44-cent, who is each year paying into this, there needs to be a site online where they can go and see how many millions that is, and they should be able to audit every year what equipment was bought, whatever. The other thing that's disturbing to me about Rick Metz and that lack of accountability is, let's say he bought $1 million worth of equipment. It's obviously not going to programming. All of us can tell you that we've tried to get in there and get something going and get turned away. I'm in the film industry. I've been over to that space that he had retrofitted. He rents it out to the film companies. I am not surprised if he isn't making a secondary profit off of renting out all the equipment that he requested that's supposed to go to creating public access funding. I think he's renting it out to the film industry. I would like a very comprehensive external audit of all that equipment, because he's claimed for 4 years now that these very expensive cameras he buys every year break every year and he needs another one. I don't think that's the truth. I think the camera has disappeared somewhere into someone's hands. I can't prove that. I would like a truly comprehensive audit that is not done by the legal department, because the legal department is the IPEG committee who made all these decisions in the first place. And that means Rob Perry, as well as all of that team that was on there. And if you need them, I've got every single IPEG committee document that they ever gave us. And I can show you who was sitting in on those meetings, and you can find out which of those city employees. But at this point, the public, who's paid millions of dollars into this and now can't get a show to save their lives, needs to know where that money went. Because the city, I am quite concerned for you folks that you're going to be in for a nasty class action lawsuit from cable subscribers, because they are paying 44 cents into a multi-million-dollar fund that has disappeared into thin air, and no programming to show for it, and no public input whatsoever. And I think the thing that other thing I could say is just, we need a fair and transparent RFP process. It should have happened in November. That's why Willard's asking that we cancel the contract, because the deadline for that has already been missed, which means he gets another extension and another extension. Willard's saying no more extensions. It's not our fault that the city hasn't gotten it together to get this process done when it should. So let's just cancel the contract with him, period, at the time at which, whenever this ends. It was black anyway when he took over. It was black for a year when he took over. That's not an issue. The public's used to that at this point. So can we cancel his even if we haven't caught up with it in terms of the RFP? Can we just cancel this contract, get this person out of here? And I want somebody to get back the $100,000 that belongs to our public access station that went to building out his private studio. That is misappropriation of public funds, and it is against the law.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I sound like I'm yelling.
I can't tell that you're passionate.
Well, she just said everything I was going to say, so I don't know if I
Oh, okay, I'll check you off there, Steve.
And in support of what you said, this camera right here, we've been using for 10 years.
Yeah.
So equipment doesn't break every year, that's ridiculous.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Unless their training sucks.
No, really.
Well,
No. We
Oops, I
seldom,
dropped
we
it
seldom
again.
had things that were broken and everything. Only once in a blue moon it would happen. You know, people who were doing this, their progress. I mean, they were just like, they didn't want to have anything broken. They wanted to make sure everything was fine.
Because they're renting it to the
because they
phone
were
companies.
right, and they cared about the other people as well who were working as well. You know, it wasn't just like one person was in charge of everything. No, people would help each other in what they were doing.
And I just want to say one thing. The only reason I have to run, I really want to stay for this. Rosemary Sanchez, who is the only cable board member who stuck in when all of this went down, and she's the only person who was asking questions at City Hall about this. We would not be here with the station at all if it wasn't for her. She's right now in rehab. She's got OPMD, so her optic nerve is just rotting. It's going all the way down her spine to her legs. She's reaching the point where she falls almost every day. She's been in the emergency room twice. If anybody can come visit her, she's at Health South right now. It's on Jefferson. It's like 7,000 Jefferson. Please come and visit her. She's stuck there for 8 days. Nani's freaking out. She's terrified. She doesn't know what's going on.
What's the address again?
7,000 Jefferson. It's a Health South rehab center. This is the woman that's the only reason we even have these stations. If she hadn't asked all those questions in the very beginning, the city probably would have just sold off the bandwidth and we wouldn't even be talking about this, because that's what they did in California. If Rosemary hadn't been up there on the stand asking these questions, there would be none of us here. It would have been over with. So if anybody can stop by and cheer her up, I would appreciate it. And I'm so sorry I have to leave, but that's where I'm going right now. So thank you so much for holding this meeting.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Did
you,
you get an
Laura.
arepa? I mean, an empanada?
I can't eat sugary things.
Oh.
Smith? Smith didn't want to speak?
Yeah, I'll say a few words.
You want to say a few words, okay.
Hi, I'm Vincent Smith. I've been with Quote Unquote since 1996. Off and on, I've had a show. I did music videos. I did Bonnie Greathouse, worked with Bonnie Greathouse. I worked with Caleb Crump. I did various shows. Now I have a disc jockey show on Quote Unquote with the radio station. And, you know, for people like me to go back on the air, Channel 27, it would be a blast. It would be fun. And so, you know, looking at all this, the agendas and reading about what Mr. Willard had to say about, I've helped Channel 27 move at least 6 times. There was a time they didn't even have a van, and I donated my van and my time. And so they need to come back on the air, and that's all I have to say. Thank you for listening to me.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Colleen.
Yes. Hi. I'm kind of hot, so I'm just gonna stand.
That's all right.
So my name's Colleen Gorman. I have started with Quote Unquote in 2001. I was a student at the University of New Mexico. I am Navajo, originally from the Navajo Reservation. And yes, I am related to R.C. Gorman. So I am an artist and a muralist. I'm also a founder of the Media Arts Collaborative Charter School, which is located off of Washington and Central.
Mm-hmm.
And I helped Steve and I, as we were working with Quote Unquote, we actually wrote me and the employees and other members of quote unquote community actually wrote the charter school application as well as the media arts content standards and benchmarks. Max became the very first statewide state authorized charter school in New Mexico. It's currently one of the doing very well as a high school, actually expanded into middle school. And I made sure to integrate the Navajo holistic philosophy of Albuq-Cable, which is the Beauty Way philosophy. I integrated that into all the classes, as well as the media education and media literacy into all the core and the elective classes into a project-based learning system that spirals as they learn. And so the students have actually done so well that the University of New Mexico used to have a digital competition for video and animation productions. And because our students were so much better than their college students, they actually changed the rules the following year so that only college students could apply to be part of that competition. I formerly was the Media Education and Information Systems Coordinator. That was just a high-level name for me as a receptionist. But I had taught myself how to program, so I built the website. I knew how to, I learned how to develop databases. So I implemented the database system for the information system, the knowledge base is what I call it. I also implemented the Authorized Apple Training Center, which set up, quote unquote, we were the very first Authorized Apple Training Center in the state as well. I worked with FAPI, the Film Apprenticeship Program, to establish a film apprenticeship program for the state of New Mexico. So there were film apprenticeship people who were actually working and getting certified and working in the film industry through our program and through FAPI. We went from there and applied for Channel 26. We got it going to expand the content. And we had producers who were producing 3-hour shows, new content once a week on music and a number of other things. So we were really jumping. And at that point,
not to mention internet as well is going out.
Yeah. Oh yes, we were also streaming. I forgot about that. So we were getting the content out there. And it all basically started in 1979 when there was like Bill and Denise Makeley and a small group of people who wanted to have community television because the airwaves had been privatized. And so the channel was created, and this was actually, it was created to broadcast. It was a community television channel. And then Jones Cable came into town, and so quote unquote got a channel on Jones Cable. And then at the national level, quote unquote, advocated for the Comcast Cable Act of 1984 to pass. And so after that act passed, nationwide, PEG channels were required to be funded by cable companies to be given that pot of money because they were laying their cable on public rights of way. So that was their way to give back to the community. And so quote unquote, and the channel actually existed before public access existed. That's why in the contract between the city of Albuquerque and Comcast Cable, it specifically names quote unquote as the operator of Comcast Cable Channel 27. So I would actually put forth that sure, the city could have pulled the RFP and could have pulled the contract, but they had no right to pull the channel away from the originators of the channel. And one of the original basically supporters of Comcast Cable. And so because of the Comcast Cable Act of 1984, what I remember 10 years ago, or 5 years ago, excuse me, was that there were over 800 PEG channels in the whole country. And quote unquote was the 5th in the nation for providing content, local programming, and new local programming as well. And so that's just a little bit of information. The core values of quote unquote have kept me to continue as a volunteer for quote unquote. And those core values basically mean supporting freedom of speech for everyone, democracy, and basically providing a public forum for people, for the community to arrive at community solutions. So we would have town hall discussions. We would have debates. I myself actually had Mayor Marty Chavez. I invited Mayor Barry, but he didn't come to that, to come and have a debate. Mayor Marty Chavez did come. So there were a number of shows that would allow things like that. The type of content that was on air was very broad. I didn't necessarily agree with all of it, but it made me very joyous to like see that the variety of programming. So we would have the Muslim Hour, followed by the Yahweh Show, followed by Hemp TV, followed by Native Zine, you know, followed by the Gun Show, and then Ask Otto, which was one of the most watched shows. Because it was kind of like those two guys that you call in and you're like, there's a noise in my car.
Click and clack.
You know, can you fix that?
It's on K,
Right.
K and
So
W.
the variety of content
Yeah.
was provided at the very low price of $65 a year. And if people couldn't afford that, they could fill out a hardship request and just volunteer their time helping, quote unquote, supporting its operations in order to be able to just to be able to access the media. And on top of that, another core value besides freedom of speech and democracy is media education and literacy. We went out to public schools. As a media education coordinator and the trainers, we taught everyone from elementary school all the way up to like 80-year-olds. We taught them. And the other thing is allowing media education and literacy through training, production, and programming opportunities. We were always finding ways to provide those programming opportunities. And the radio station, that's just part of it. That's another programming opportunity for people. And so right now, with zero money, I mean with very little money, I should say, not zero. We do have money. We have producers who are producing. I have like, my favorite is a 15-year-old who is seriously smart and way talented, and he's producing, and he can produce a radio show from start to finish without my help. And he's doing that at the RFK KQQ location. He's actually from the South Valley Academy. So one of the things that we used to do that I would like to very much to bring back at our new KQQ location is we used to have Freedom of Speech Day, where we also had a parade. We went through town, and we would have events and bands and things like that playing. And we also had a Freedom of Speech essay competition. And so I wanted to bring that back to have elementary, middle school, high school, and adults. And bring in some scholarships to fund that, so that whoever wins that, like they could win scholarships to like basically supporting freedom of speech, but having those essays read on air. And I had some students who really wanted to come from RFK Charter School, but they're dependent on their parents, so they weren't sure if they could make it or not. So that's just kind of what I've done with quote unquote. I do want to say that after when this happened, I was actually director of Warehouse 508. I had quit, quote unquote, resigned from there to become director of Warehouse 508. And it was actually my goal at the time to set up 508 so that if we could actually have another public access television for youth. And I had reached out to Free Speech TV, and I had people make TV. And so I was actually working with Isleta Pueblo, and they were very supportive. And they were actually willing to allow 508 to use the casino to do fundraisers and events as long as their youth were allowed. So that's, I'm not going to continue down that path because that's a whole long story there. But there's just some really amazing things that because of quote unquote I was able to do. And as a Native American woman, I believe it's really important for us to be able to tell our own stories. Because too often you have the ignorant, you know, person who thinks they know what they're talking about. There's too many, what would you call it, Indian experts, and not enough expert Indians out there.
Too many John Wayne. Too many John Waynes.
And so. So when I went to UPublic, I went to their orientation, and I know how to use their TriCaster because I had already set one up for quote unquote, and they were like, well, you got to take our class, our orientation, and you got to pay $1,000 for this class. And during orientation, they told me, they said we don't do anything controversial, and I raised my hands and I said, you know what? I'm Native American. I'm a poet. My show is going to be called Alternative Views because that's what I've done it on. It's going to be controversial because I'm an Indian. I'm Native American. It's going to be controversial. If I bring a poet on, it's going to be controversial. Just being Indian is controversial, right? So they were like, well, your poets are going to have to talk to us first, you know? So directly, at the very beginning, they were already telling me that they were going to censor my content. And that because I was Native American, that this was, and a woman on top of that, and a poet because I'm a member of the Angry Brown Poets, and I also represented Albuquerque as part of the Albuquerque Poetry Slam team. We went to nationals. The following year, we actually won the National Poetry Slam here in Albuquerque. So I'm part of the group that helped to get that going as well. And so they were telling me that I couldn't put poetry on air because it was going to be too controversial. Talk about limiting freedom of speech, right? And so I'm also asking. I'm all on board with what Laura's asking for. Is UPublic? They just need to go black already. They should have gone black a long time ago. GCMA, who's doing business as UPublic. They originally were with Calvary Church, which is a mega church, right? So they were airing all kinds of mega church content. I didn't see any Muslim shows going on there. And now it's an umbrella for Rick Metz. They're not a 501c3, so already they're disqualified because they're not a true 501c3.
They didn't have it at the beginning, much less at the end.
Right.
Coley, could you wrap it up?
Oh, yes. Okay.
I'll give you 30 seconds.
Okay. So to wrap it up, I think really, you know, there's a lot of good points, and I think as the board president of Quote Unquote Incorporated, my goal is to support freedom of speech for all people. And I believe it's important for the community to be healthy, to be able to have a forum for public comment and a forum for just public to discuss and to arrive at community solutions. And for people to be aware of media, what's going on in the world, to deconstruct media, and to have their own voice, especially in this day and age when they're only allowing one voice out there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was awesome.
All right.
Steve?
Well, since almost all of it's been told, well, no, I just want to say very quickly, I think it's imperative that the city goes out and tries to find where all that gear went and where the money went. That should have been done a long time ago. The fact that it was disappeared all over the place, that nobody was watching it, apparently, it was. That doesn't happen in any real ordinary place like this city should be. It's ridiculous that happened. So I think it's imperative that this happens right away. Okay, this has to happen. I mean, people have been telling me that there's stuff all over the place, and this the South Valley up that way, all over the place that's for, you know, and they're saying that this is sitting there, and I can't believe that all that gear and all that stuff that people could use, really could use, and people need to use, it's just sitting there, you know, and it's really something that shouldn't happen to the people in this community. Period. That's all I need to say. That's the major thing that we need to do. The people in this community need to have this back. That's it.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Okay, Alan.
Okay.
Wrap it up, buddy.
I can be even shorter than that.
Okay.
Okay, just a couple of things that I think are important. You might feel are important. I'm a native person. I was born and raised in Albuquerque. My father was a plumber. I worked. Well, I graduated from college. I was thrown out of school at UNM for organizing demonstrations against the Vietnam War in 1970. I worked with Martin Luther King for 3 years in Mississippi, out of Jackson, and out of for those of you who don't know, it's called the Delta. Yeah, he knows.
Yeah.
And I'm very proud of that. I think I think that the work that we've done until we were taken over by these miscreants. Ooh, wow, where'd I get that one? I think we were doing really important work. It was supportive of women, the women's struggle, supportive of women, and we brought people on to be interviewed who had just come back from Iraq during the height of the Iraqi war. They came and talked from their hearts, and we covered the jet plume until they threw us off the air. I think we had 8 shows about the jet plume. The jet plume is threatening. In fact, it's in the process of destroying the city, an excellent well system that serves Albuquerque. It's so insidious that the VA has turned off their water from their source because it's being compromised by this benzene. I think there's 90 million gallons, and it's traveling in a north and an easterly direction. We reported on that, and I think it would be a crime not to report on it. I think that they caught flack. I can't prove it. I think they caught flack because we were talking about these, what I consider to be really relevant issues affecting the health and welfare of New Mexico. I love New Mexico. I'm not going to make any comment about Albuquerque, but the rest of the state's wonderful. Anyway, I've been an activist since 1959 when I graduated from the Navy. I was on the USS Midway CVA-41 aircraft carrier. And I got some fight left in me, and I'm really hopeful that you all will do what obviously needs to be done as quickly as possible so we can get on with it. We have a lot of stories to tell.
Yes.
There's stories being told as we speak. But that nobody mentioned. Democracy Now! We showed that on the air every day, and I think Amy Goodman and Democracy Now! Is about as relevant as you can get in terms of knowing what's going on in the world, and it shows who we are and where we are. And as of a couple of years ago, until we got pushed off the air, we had served served the city for 33 years and trained over 10,000, that's 10,000 mostly young people, how to use the sound system, the lighting system, directing and writing original script. It's just doing the whole nine yards. And I'm proud to be associated with such an illustrious, beautiful group of people. My heart makes me cry with. Anyway, camp through.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was on one of the founding members with Colleen, getting the Media Arts Charter School started.
Right.
Thank you very much, Alan.
With 2
Yes.
minutes. Okay, point 1 is that, like I said, I used to work with Rio Rancho, public access, and the first thing that UPublic did when they won the contract in Rio Rancho was close the facility and abscond with all the equipment.
I didn't know that.
Which means that's why I had to drive in and out of town just to get equipment, which, you know, I never got. Secondly, the music portion of UPublic, I am interested in recording, so I went and checked that out. And the only way that you could record using UPublic facilities was if you paid. Plus, after I'd gone to all these different classes and kept seeing the same people over and over, we kind of got to talking amongst ourselves, and we got to saying, well, you know, we're going through all these classes, but nothing's getting produced. One more comment, and that is that UPublic has a warehouse facility that has like an enormous amount of props, costume, wardrobe. I've been down there a couple of times. I saw these big trucks, you know, kind of bagging up, taking stuff in and out. And so I kind of asked around. I said, well, you know, somebody must have some pretty big productions. And they said, I don't know. They're renting that out to the movie set for movie studios. Where's that money going?
Well, I've actually gone to the prop house when it used to be.
Yeah.
That's really Mr. Metz's primary interest.
Okay, this is just
Okay.
him to us right now.
I'm done.
Thank you.
I'm done. But I had to get that point in.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much for your inputs. They're valuable and appreciated. And I just hope that you continue to stay the course.
With us. We'll stay the course with you.
All right.
When does it start?
Thank you so much. The boat leaves next week, okay, everybody? All right.
Cool.
Well, let's continue on. Thank you all again for your comments. We need to discuss the meeting notice, the form of, and for that, we're going to turn our attention to James.
So, under the city ordinance, all the different committees and boards of the city government have to, once a year, generate a resolution about reasonable notice.
That's what this is.
That's it, yeah.
Did you
And-
I didn't quite get one.
So, you know, it's pretty much following a format, and so I followed the format. And, you know, some of these resolutions have a little more or less, and I think this is on the more, you know, having more of the verbiage in it. So what it covers is the location of the meetings, and I have already reserved the council, city council committee room for the next year. And,
Wow.
yeah, because it's hard to get that room. And so, yeah, this is my email. Yeah, we have that room until December, you know, every other month
Okay.
through December 11th, 2018.
Okay.
And, let's see, what else was I gonna say? Those are just the regular meetings. You know, that room is obviously preferable to this one because that room is easier to
Bigger.
and it's bigger and
Yeah.
all that. And it's better known, you know, a lot of the public meetings are up there. That's this schedule, every other month is just for the regular meetings.
Okay.
And the committee, the board can actually call special meetings and emergency meetings. But this is, for now, if you approve this, that would be your minimum meeting schedule that you would need at least
At this point, every other month.
every other month, right.
Okay.
How do you
okay.
feel about that?
I move that we accept this resolution
The
and
rest
allow
of-
Ms. Jane to publish it.
The rest of it, it just has to do with how the public will be informed that this is following the Open Meetings Act. So that, we're publishing these on the web pages of the cable board, has a web page, and then we'll post it downstairs in one of the bulletin boards in the lobby. And there's an explanation about closed meetings. I don't know that there are gonna be any reason to close these meetings. So that's pretty much it. That's a
Okay.
summary.
Very good. Well, I second the motion to approve this resolution. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All against? The resolution is adopted.
Okay. Kay and I will publish that.
Thank you.
I wanted to give a report, and it's not on the agenda, so you can't vote on it, but for the sake of information.
Sure.
I should have put it on the agenda, but.
It doesn't
it's-
fall under Comcast update?
No, well, it has to do with what we were talking about last time. And it does relate to the minutes. And you've already approved the minutes.
Mm.
It has to do with submission of public comments to the cable board on board's webpage. So, last time, the members, the two of you had a discussion about, whether, commenters should identify themselves. And, also whether, the website should allow commenters to upload attachments. And, I was
Oh, that's
directed
right.
to convey this information to the city's IT department, and
Right.
which I did. And the IT staff person who is in charge of this said that it can be made part of the public comment portion of the webpage. That the persons wishing to provide public comment have to provide their first and last name. And
That is a requirement based on an existing city code or?
well, this
procedure?
is the preference of the.
Oh, this is the IT people saying.
Well, yeah, IT is saying that they can do it, and this is something that the two of you seem to think
I'd
that-
like to know who's asking what. Yeah.
Yes,
Very much like what this was.
yeah.
Willard had given us his whole name,
Right,
and so that was very good.
okay. So, of course, you know, people can put other names in there, but at
That's
least
true.
they're making an effort to identify themselves, and that, on the other hand, and this is just, I serve as staff to the committee, so I can give you, advice, but it's up to you how you want to run your webpage. That it also shows that the committee is serious about receiving these comments, and that they, I think wanting to know who the person is part of the seriousness
Mhm.
of soliciting these comments. So I think that it can be viewed as a legitimate request. And when I asked Matt Mays, that's the staff person, for this project, and he works for the Department of Technology and Innovation, he said that it may deter people from
Leaving a comment?
leaving a comment. And I said I would take that back to you. We can put this on the agenda next time, so that, you can vote on it or
Yeah,
something like that.
discuss the
And
issue
discuss that.
to
Discuss.
name or not to name.
Yes.
Okay.
And then the other thing was about allowing commenters to upload attachments. And that can be done, except that it will be limited by the city's email system.
Sure, you can only put X amount of size of an
Yeah.
attachment.
And no dirty words, right? That's the way the states.
Yeah,
it'll
probably,
reject it if you've
probably.
got-
I didn't discuss that with him, but probably. And it's 8 megabytes,
Oh, that's a pretty fair size.
okay?
You can get a good sized document in 8 megabytes.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
That's including the comments, because it's
Right.
actually 10. But he
Okay.
said, they're usually telling people 8.
Okay.
All right, and let's see. That's about
So the state
it.
email will also reject, besides foul language, other things, racist, sexist, religious stuff. I don't know if your city email does that as well.
I don't know, I'll find out for you.
I remember we had a stipulation when we were doing programming that we wouldn't do there's a few words, like a few 4-letter
Oh,
words,
yes.
that before 10 o'clock you couldn't use, but if somebody was doing it after 10, it would be all right. Some poets speak with, you know.
Those are
lot-
FCC regulations.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that we agreed, it went along.
I was wondering if I could ask you a couple of questions whenever it fits into your agenda there.
A what? I'm
A
sorry.
couple of
He wants
questions.
to know
Oh.
if you could ask a couple of questions.
I think after
well,
we get through the agenda.
Yeah,
All right.
and you'll have to wait
I don't know
until
if that's considered
we're
s-
through this segment with Jane.
Sure.
Jane has the floor.
Sure.
Well, I think that we finished item number 3, right, because you voted
Yeah,
on the form of the meeting, and then I segued into the issue of the submission of public comments
And we can put that on the agenda.
for next time.
Yeah.
are we up to
What's the name of the
Comcast update?
Emails. Yeah, and we still need to get to item 4, which is if you have any information about the franchise renewal.
All right, so
It's still in the works, I'm assuming.
it's still in the works, and I imagine that we're gonna start in earnest in January. And that we have been also in communication with Las Cruces because they are negotiating a renewal too. So we want to be sure that, you know, our positions are, you know, somewhat similar.
Yeah.
And so that we don't have a divide and conquer kind of thing.
Okay.
And let's see. I think that the main objectives that the city group, you know, the Comcast renewal work group, which was the a representative of the finance department, legal department, cultural affairs. Let's see who else. IT, Department of Innovation and Technology. The objectives that group came up with are primarily in this master ordinance. And this is something that is going to be given to Comcast pretty soon.
Excuse
But
me.
the issues,
It was coming down.
I think that we, I think I kind of reviewed with you last time the main objectives of this ordinance. And let's see. So it's up to you all whether you want to put any of those items on the agenda for further discussion with the public and among yourselves, so that you can make recommendations to the administration,
Now,
the
how,
new administration.
right, you were working on,
The grant of authority.
right, but you were also adding to the system, to the contract, a public right.
Yes, that's already done. It's on
Okay.
this one. This is the Customer Service and Protection Standards Consumer Bill of Rights.
Yeah.
And then there's also a Customer Privacy Protection Standards. Customer Privacy Protection Standards. I know I printed out the kind of the outline of the things that we're trying to achieve, and right now I don't know what happened to it.
Your outline.
So, is there, can you give us some advice about how to put some of the items that are in the ordinance that are new, open for public comment? That's not gonna take like 5 hours. I mean, is there a way to?
I think that it's up to you to pick those issues that you want to put on the agenda, and then we can explain to the public who comes to that meeting what we're trying to do, and then have public comment on it and see if there's some way, if there's some suggestions that you want to make to the administration about how to strengthen, you know, what we've already proposed. And I would say maybe you would want to have a special meeting for that, because if you did it in January, then, you know, there would still be time.
Okay, because you're expecting the contract to go before Comcast in February?
Probably, but, you know, I can tell them that this is still being circulated. You know, it's kind of tricky, because the negotiations, we don't want the negotiations to start prematurely, you know, and so we don't want to release the position of the city as a public document until we're really ready to, you know, sit down and negotiate with them in earnest. So I think that because of that, we can tell Comcast that we are having additional meetings with the public to assess the community's needs, and also to evaluate Comcast's performance. Those are the two pieces that the federal law, the Cable Act, establish as criteria that the city can look at to negotiate an agreement and to stake out a position.
Well, I would like an opportunity to sit down and think about the changes, and I think my preference would be to meet with you like maybe second week of January to see if we have concerns that are similar.
I should be able to make
Okay,
something like
now,
that.
under the Open Meetings Act, we cannot meet without the public, this was,
Notice.
yeah, I don't think, let me check on that. I don't think that it can be exempted from the open meetings requirements.
Right.
So,
Okay.
so you and I can meet separately, just to go over this so you'll understand that. And, you know, Brian,
Same.
you and I can meet, and then the two of you can meet, and hopefully we'll recruit one other member, hopefully. I'm hoping with the new administration settled in, that there'll be people out in the community that will want to serve during this time.
Would you like to hear from us about that? Because I have a lot of contacts, local community contacts.
I'll be glad to call you
Okay.
offline.
Okay.
You know, like separately from
Yeah,
this meeting.
no, I'm not, I just want to try and
And you
get
left your
things
phone
going.
number here, right?
Yeah, that's it. Alan. Bob.
Okay. Yeah, I'll call you.
Okay. So if anybody has any ideas, let me know so I can tell her.
Okay.
Well, very good.
So that's sort of a plan, and we can develop that a little bit more.
Okay. That's,
Separately, you know. Again, I always call the chair. That's your function to set an agenda. And then if you have some ideas, then I'll call Sandy and tell her. So
And
that we don't
I
run
do.
afoul.
I have
You know,
some.
if we have more members, we wouldn't have this problem, because, you know, two people can talk with each other because they're not a quorum.
Yeah. So,
okay, I agree with that.
that's a shame, we're not a.
Letting you
forum. Okay.
tutor us.
Yeah, if we had more people, then two people would not be a quorum. So that's what's causing this awkwardness.
That's all right. Well, thank you.
So, and let me ask you another question. Since we've already had public comment and moved on, can we entertain questions at this point, or is that?
That's up to you, and I would also say that we can talk about, after hearing all this public comment, if you want to put any of those issues on the agenda, and we could even put it for a special meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a cure for that.
Okay.
But,
I'd
and
like
if you
to
want
talk
to
with you.
get
Well,
more, and you can definitely ask questions, because that could be part of your thinking when you decide, you know, what issues you want to put for a special meeting and when, you know, so you can always ask questions yourself. But I don't think that, you know, I have not seen boards or committees just open themselves up for questions, you know, but you can ask questions.
Well, and to the public, the one thing I'd like to address is the fact that we may not have answers. You can ask questions which might lead to something that we would put on agenda at another meeting, but it may not be that we can answer those questions, either because we don't know or that it's just not for us to say. So I will listen to 3 questions right now before we close this meeting.
Hey, are you ready?
I'm ready. Go ahead.
Well, I from the public standpoint, you know, I'm just giving you my opinion, but it seems that the process is pretty opaque, and in terms of what is the relationship between the cable board and a possible RFP being issued. And does the cable board have input into that process? Could it be possible the cable board is part of the selection process? Or is it completely, it seems like the last administration put a wall between any cable board or the RFP process, and that's where it kind of went awry, I think, because the public was not involved.
Well, may I say that we can make a recommendation.
To whom?
And that's about as far as it goes
To the administration.
for this board. Am I correct in that?
That's
To
correct.
Is that to the mayor? Is that you're referring to?
We would recommend to the mayor, and I don't know if it trickles down to
His team?
council,
And the council.
city council.
Yeah.
Under the ordinance, this board is an advisory to both the mayor, it's not just the mayor's office, but the mayor himself, and to city council. It depends on what the situation is, you know, whether it's in front of the mayor or in front of the council, but you do have that scope of advisory
Okay.
function.
Okay, we could appear in front of the city council.
Yes.
Okay. But
Uh,
I'm gonna make a educated guess that we have absolutely nothing to do with the RFP process.
Right.
I just if I could make a comment, it might be worthwhile to pursue some influence. You know what I mean? I mean, you may not have some legal or statutory basis, but you certainly have the ability to lobby for that kind of influence, I would think.
Thank you.
I think the RFP process is laid out by
By law.
ordinance and by,
Yeah, by the state procurement code,
Yeah.
and also by the ordinance. There's a city ordinance about procurement.
Yeah. But there are opportunities for public comment.
Right, it has to be approved by city council,
And that we could ask for.
yes.
Okay.
Colleen, you had a question?
Yes, my question was, from the meeting minutes today, if recommendation and documentation of points be provided to the mayor and city council as for reasons for why Public is not meeting its obligations to the Comcast cable subscribers and the public. Is that something that you as the cable board, I'm sorry, I'm not.
Yeah, we're
Comcast
not
cable board.
IPAG, yeah.
Can you make that, I don't know, recommendation or just statement of information?
I'm not following.
Well,
I'm sorry.
Well, the statements that we provided here, I think there's a lot of information that's being recorded.
Right.
And instead of having it just go off into space and into the memory of the golden reel of life, that if it actually could be documented and provided as information to the mayor and Comcast, and the city council. The
Well,
recommendation would be up to you.
right, to make a recommendation based on all of this would not be fair because we haven't heard the U public side. I have heard the quote-unquote side, but I have not heard the U public side. And to be honest, I wrote that down, that in the future I'd like to see if I could have a representative from U public attend a meeting or to meet with them on a one-to-one. I'm not sure what would work best, but that would be a fair way to, not that I'm saying, you know, you guys made terrific comments, and thank you, but I need to hear another side before I can make a recommendation that goes up the chain.
But the information could be provided just as a summary of what happens today.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, that would be great.
As a point of order, though, I don't think it would it be proper for you to meet with them separately?
It would have to be a public meeting.
It would have to be a public meeting.
Yeah.
I could personally just go down and investigate myself.
Yeah, it becomes
For-
public if the two of us do it.
Yeah. If we
Right.
went as
But
a,
doesn't that fall under the Open Meetings Act?
Mm,
No, it takes two, it takes a quorum of the board for it to be subject to the open meetings.
yeah.
Right,
Is that correct?
that's correct.
Yeah. Okay, and one last question. Alan?
Well, unless somebody else wants to. I'm concerned, I'm afraid, as I sit here right now, that all the information that we've been able to present to you, assuming that it's accurate and reliable, that precautions should be made so that if the worst case scenario happened and Mets wanted to leave with an 18-wheeler full of equipment, which personally I can totally see him capable of doing, that there'd be some authority saying, before you move, go and analyze what they've got,
Right.
log it all out, including the truck with all the equipment that he
Right.
was referring to, and get an accounting so that we have a basis of making a decision.
I
Right.
can,
That's what I
provide
was,
some information on
that's what
that.
I was
I'm
asking.
sorry.
I can provide some information on
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
Like,
Do you see
That
what I'm
there's
saying?
already been an inventory.
there has been an
Yes.
inventory. Okay.
Okay, so a year ago, there was, the city hired a contractor who is a specialist in doing inventories and appraising inventory to conduct an inventory of the equipment, and so I have that inventory. And the city legal department has this year asked that U Public provide a report about the equipment and how it was used, each piece, especially the bigger pieces. How many hours of programming each piece of equipment was used for, and questions like that.
I'm just worried that
Is
it'll
that-
vanish.
And so we gave that letter to them last month.
So how long do they have to respond with their report,
Whatever they want.
with the information? How long a period?
Well,
60 days, 30 days, 90 days?
It's a question of, reasonableness, and so it will be, about a month or a month and a half.
I'll just-
Is that inventory public document?
Yes.
So anybody in this room could ask to see that document
Right, and so
through the process.
part of what we did with this contractor that came to Albuquerque a year ago was we gave the contractor the most complete list of equipment that we had. And so the contractor pretty much found all of it, because I sat with the contractor at the end before he left. And we went through the list and were able to account for all of it. And the questions are designed to locate the equipment and make sure, and that's part of the questioning, you
Right.
know, to identify all the equipment that's city-owned, the location, and its use. And I asked very specific questions about the hours of programming that can be attributed to
Each
you know,
piece of equipment.
Each,
Sure.
and I'm talking about the
Right.
bigger, you know, the TriCasters, the cameras,
Mhm.
the, you know, some of the
Accountability.
servers
Right.
and things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's an accountability question.
Would they have to make it under IPRA? If anyone in this room wanted that, would they have
Yes.
to make an IPRA request?
Yes.
Okay. How long does that take?
What's that?
How long does it take after you make a IPRA request to actually get the,
Okay, so you have to respond within 3 days, and then within the 3 days, you have to let the requester know when this stuff will be available, and if it's longer than 15 days, then you have to explain why.
okay.
That's
So
kind
they
of
can get it
generally
pretty
how it
quickly.
goes. What's
Yeah.
that?
So they could get it pretty quickly?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, wonderful. Would could this board request a copy of that inventory?
Of course.
I would like to request a copy of that inventory.
All right.
I second that motion.
Is there anything you could do to make certain that the monies, there seems to be a lot of money floating around into thin air. Is there any way you can make them accountable for the money that, because they're still making, they're selling commercials on 3 channels, and they're not supposed to sell any commercials at all. So let's say they did, believe me, just for a moment that they do that. How are you gonna?
I do not know how that accountability process would come about. Jane, can you supply some information on that?
So we have Appendix A is the guidelines for sponsorship announcements, and I can provide that to you too.
Okay, that'd be terrific.
And you know, we review compliance, and I can say that in a, you know, in a general way. We have issued letters of non-compliance. So since 2016, there was a letter of concern. In April 2016 and in 2017, there were 2 letters of non-compliance, and I can provide those to you.
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
that information would be
Would you like to
terrific.
see those?
I would.
Thank you very much,
Oh,
Jane.
I was wondering, so can there be the amounts that each person's or sponsors paid, gave for sponsorship? You know, what they gave in, say, equipment or money. There's a list of all that. That's documented very specifically, right? When
That
they
is required by the contract.
So they have all that's listed in every.
Yes.
Which is essentially the mayor's office and city council.
What's that?
I didn't follow that one either.
The city council plays a major role in the day-to-day events of this.
Contract?
Yeah.
No, not at all, because this contract is administered by the administration of the government.
The
But
local government.
The city of Albuquerque government.
Okay.
But the city council, I believe, has to approve this because of the size. I'm not sure, I'm gonna have to look that up.
It could be the purchasing department that really oversees the kind
Yeah,
of.
the purchasing department is in charge of the RFP, and it is being prepared right now. I mean, I don't think that that's a secret.
And compliance, is that the same department?
What?
Is compliance?
Purchasing.
That's
No.
purchasing. Okay, so purchasing oversees compliance.
No, I do.
Oh, you do? Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you all. So appreciate it.
Okay,
Thank you.
I move move that we adjourn.
Very important motion.
Okay.
I second that motion. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
This
Aye,
meeting
aye,
is
aye.
now adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you all for attending. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.